For the people who welcome to the February Broadband Consortium Pacific Coast Advisory Meeting. This is our monthly meeting for stakeholders, public, private, nonprofit, anybody who's interested. We sometimes get community members in too. And right now, everyone's just putting their introductions in the chat, your name, the organization you're with, the role you play at that organization, anything else you want us to know. If you want to put your contact information in, it's always a great way to network with other folks on the call. We have a pretty small group today, and really, I will run through a few updates and report out some of the achievements from 2024. And then we're really hoping to have a conversation about priority areas for deployment in our region for the upcoming cycles of funding, but also just areas that we still need to address in our region. I'm Shelby Arthur, so I lead the Broadband Consortium Pacific Coast, and I'm also situated in the county of Santa Barbara, so that is where I liaise predominantly. Nadine, would you introduce yourself as well?
Yes, my name is Nadine, and I handle communications for the BCPC. I'm located up in Monterey County.
Thank you. And Tim is on the call. Tim, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everybody. Tim Tierney with the Broadband Consortium doing GIS mapping and other data management. I'm located in Los Angeles County, but my heart is in the BCPC territory.
Thank you, Tim. And Tim is leading our regional collaboration portal initiative, which we'll touch on a little bit later as well. Again, Malika Ohm, who is our liaison for Ventura County. She is not here right now and will be joining us later. And Michael Foote from REACH, Economic Development Director at REACH in San Luis Obispo County, will be joining us as well. He is our broadband liaison for San Luis Obispo County. Quick overview of our agenda. We'll go through a few updates. If you have updates from your particular standpoint in our region, we will have an opportunity for you to share those updates out. And then we will head into a general discussion of priority areas. We want to share with you sort of the process that we're using to validate which areas are ripe for deployment and investment, how we're not ranking priorities, but how we're designating them as priority areas, and then really dig in with your feedback and your input and hear from you about the viability of those, and also maybe any challenges that you're facing in addressing any of those. Next slide, please. So this is we want to couch our whole conversation in the Broadband Consortium Pacific Coast sort of overarching, I don't know what I'm going to call it, mission, but this return to the imperative of deploying broadband in our region. It's connected to so many different initiatives across so many organizations. We used some of our funding last year to develop a few videos to really communicate this imperative to many different audiences, but also to develop some other assets that we are happy to present and share on behalf of some of our stakeholders if you need us to present or engage with any of your partners and colleagues about the importance of bringing broadband and particularly to all areas of our Central Coast area. So Nadine worked on this video. You will recognize the voice if you are a longtime caller on the BCPC advisory meeting. Phil Simmons with our voiceover. And take it away. It's a short video. Hopefully we can all hear the sound.
Please let me know if you don't hear the sound. I don't remember if I shared the audio and I screen shared or not.
Oh.
Can't hear. Okay, give me 1 second. Here we go. it will work now.
The Central Coast is a special place. What makes it unique also allows us to shape our future. Let me ask you a question. How significant is broadband in your daily life? To answer that, imagine a day without the internet. It's hard, isn't it? Broadband, access to high-speed internet, has become the backbone of our society. It's the invisible thread that binds us together and connects us to essential services every day. Broadband is not just about entertainment or convenience, it's a lifeline, a modern-day utility as vital as water, gas, and electricity. Consider e-commerce. The rise of online shopping, especially during the time of COVID, made broadband indispensable. Broadband has revolutionized healthcare through telemedicine. It enables virtual doctor visits, remote patient monitoring, and digital health records. And let's not forget digital learning. Broadband powers online education and virtual classrooms, bridging the employee's skills gap with remote training to create a future-ready workforce. Yet, despite these advancements, not all communities are starting at the same place. Some neighborhoods risk being left behind. We must bridge the gap to ensure everyone has equal access to broadband, regardless of location or income. Nearly a century ago, Route 66 connected communities across the country. Those who weren't connected suffered. Today, broadband is equally important and the consequences are just as significant. It's time to ensure abundant broadband access to light up our cities, keep them online, and deliver connectivity for all. That's why it's critical for our community leaders to adopt a forward-looking strategy for creating connected communities. The time to start that discussion is right now.
Thanks, Nadine. And we will be posting that up on our website. We're currently undergoing a merge into the website of the Economic Development Collaborative. EDC is our fiscal agent and hosts the BCPC. So we're working on merging into their website and we'll have these assets available online. We, as the BCPC, are funded by the CPUC, and our primary purpose is to accelerate the deployment of broadband in our region. We take a wider view of deployment of broadband infrastructure and actually relate it to adoption, right? Because those of you on the call who are providers know better than any of us that if you don't have customers, then why are you going to deploy to that area? So we really actually take a vested interest in working with CBOs and digital inclusion practitioners to help support communities in understanding the imperative of digital access and ensuring that once broadband infrastructure is installed, there are partners who can come in and support community members in adopting through engagement in affordable plans or community access points, and as well as distributing digital devices and taking digital literacy classes to get them up to speed so that it can serve their purposes. In 2024, we did wrap up our year-end report, which we send off to the CPUC and we post up online so you can kind of get a sense of what we have been doing and what we are intending to do next. Primarily, our achievements were in the areas of mapping and infrastructure. We created a comprehensive regional broadband map. We incorporated a lot of different data sources, which we'll touch on. We have been tracking funding awards. We are overlaying demographic indicators to help us understand a little bit better what economic challenges might be inhibiting broadband deployment in certain places, but then also how we can partner with private ISPs and municipalities to help resolve those challenges and barriers. We supported several successful federal funding account awards. I have a slide coming up that sort of overviews what those awards are and how much funding is remaining for each of those counties. We did some strategic planning. That was another piece of our approach is to really support strategic planning at the county level, at the municipal level, and then maybe across jurisdictions. One of those projects was to conduct a pilot study in partnership with Econ Alliance. We conducted a pilot study around mobile home park connectivity in northern Santa Barbara County. And this study was designed because CPUC and FCC data continue to show that mobile home park residents are not connected at sufficient speed. Yet, when we talk with ISPs who serve that area, they continue to say, no, we provide service there. What is going on? What is the distinction here? And so we sought to validate the service levels in mobile home parks. And what ended up happening is we ran into quite a few challenges in even just accessing information. So that study is part of our report. We're happy to share that out with everybody and ensure that you benefit from the results of our findings. We supported the development of county-specific broadband strategic plans. So in 2023, that was predominantly San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara counties. In 2024, Ventura County has been working really hard towards developing a regional broadband initiative, which should be completed next month and will probably be a focus of maybe our April meeting. We launched the regional collaboration portal last year. Tim met with several pilot group participants to better understand what layers are useful and how we can develop a portal for sharing assets and information that will accelerate, improve, and ease broadband installations, but also help improve the communication across jurisdictions and with ISPs to see where we can identify some places for maybe cost savings or scaling to really meet our priority areas, but also do it in a way that is beneficial to all of our stakeholders. That regional collaboration portal is up and running, and we are happy. Tim, if you want to throw your email address into the chat, if you are interested in connecting with Tim about meeting with the portal pilot group, we will be having quarterly meetings. And we are happy to have any of you join. They are outside of this monthly advisory meeting. So if you'd like to join, you will need to sign up with Tim directly. We also are happy to have maintained a pretty active engagement with, almost 500 stakeholders across the 3 counties through our newsletter, smaller number through our monthly meetings, but many of those stakeholders are also accessing the recording of our meetings. We are hopeful to get more active discussions going this year so that we can really start to utilize this for a feedback loop to provide feedback up to CPUC, out to all of our stakeholders, and then internally to BCPC. Of course, funding and project support. Many of you who are on this call are part of those projects. We hope that you will continue to reach out to us if you are in need of support and information, or if you need us to support you in liaising with any of the local municipalities or with the CPUC directly. And we began working on what we're calling the regional progress checker. We still are playing with some ideas there, but really we're seeking to evaluate each municipality in terms of how they are doing through broadband coverage, through resident adoption, and then through the improved opportunities through digital literacy programming. So we have, we're still working that one out. It was a good start to that, but we have the rest of this year to work out the rest of that progress checker. And then finally, we were really excited to support and participate in digital equity initiatives, coordinating with digital equity coalitions across all 3 counties. The San Luis Obispo Coalition is sort of in a hiatus stance, still looking sort of for a more permanent leadership to house the Digital Equity Coalition or something of the like. Santa Barbara County is forging ahead through the Santa Barbara Foundation, and in Ventura County, we are excited to have a pretty tight steering committee of county officials and the Community Foundation, as well as a couple of really key community-based organizations that are tying in together to help steer digital equity initiatives in Ventura County. We are also supporting permit streamlining efforts to facilitate deployment. This will be a conversation that we'd love to have at one of our future meetings around the challenges you're facing in terms of obtaining permits. We have a couple of really great studies to share that have been developed statewide, and would love to have conversations with everyone about you know, some of the challenges. Some of our areas are very rural and will require aerial installations. And what are the challenges in getting permits for poles? What are the challenges in having conversations around micro trenching between municipalities and internet providers and infrastructure developers? So we're really excited to continue that conversation around permitting. And then finally, we are looking a lot in the digital equity initiative space around community anchor institutions and how to make sure that they're connected, number one, for resiliency, for community resiliency, but also number two, for how we can leverage those community anchor institutions as first tier access points for increasing user engagement with digital resources. So if you have somebody who can't afford to buy internet in their home yet, but they are able to submit a job application through their local library's internet access point, that is increasing their capacity to perhaps subscribe in the future and engage in the digital economy. So we're really looking at the role that community anchor institutions and CBOs can play in helping to leverage our local residents. We have about 18 months left on our CPUC funding source. We do expect that CPUC will open an additional round of consortium funding, and we are tracking that. We don't have any news to report yet, but these are really aligned with what our look ahead for the next 18 months will be. I want to pause there. Did anyone have any questions about any of the things I've mentioned or any of our plans for upcoming development? All right, let's go to the next slide. A few updates from CDT, CASIF, and CPUC. I would really like to hear from those of you who are working directly with CPUC on funding and anyone engaged with CDT as well. We have found that there has been a bit of a freeze on federal government communications. There has been a pivot away from participation in one-off meetings like ours here and one-on-one meetings with our consortium. We have been seeking participation from a variety of representatives from CPUC and are really referred over to the broadband caseworkers who then refer us to the website. There's not a lot of information coming out that's not structured into one of these statewide meetings or the BEAD. Has anyone here been able to had any experiences that they want to share with everybody around successful engagement and the ability to get in touch with folks concerning your grant opportunities? David, I saw you unmute.
Yes, we successfully got a grant and are in full motion, expecting to start putting fiber underground at the beginning of March, which is 10 days away,
Very
roughly.
exciting.
So as far as engagement with the CPUC team, it's been superb. We have regular meetings on Mondays with the technical team that interfaces with MMBI. So we're right on top of what's going on there, and we're ready for them whenever they get to us. But they don't have a schedule yet, and I understand they've been delayed by the big plan. They have 10,000 miles that they're trying to put in the ground, and the guys that are coming by us are going to do 3,000 miles of it. And we're just a small spur off the main route. So we have a backup plan to cover. I mean, without going into too much detail, we have 2 islands that we have to serve with the grant, and they're connected by a state road. And we're going to share a trench with California Department of Technology, CVIN, which is the company that's been contracted to put in the infrastructure for MMBI, and us. We're each going to have 2-inch separate conduit in the trench. So
Great.
that's the plan, to connect the 2 islands. In the meantime, we just got our equipment in for our 10 gigabit microwave/millimeter wave link. I know it's not fiber, but it is the link we're going to use until they show up. So
Okay.
we're in good shape as far as being able to serve both ends of our customer base from one central network operations center.
Great, great. I'm happy you're connected in with the MMBI. Have they talked to you? Were you able to put in any requests for like specific locations of huts along the
Well,
MMBI?
we have a class 3 data center, and we offered space in that to them under
Great.
a sharing agreement. So CVIN, CDT, and us will have all of our separate from tribal operations, separate
Perfect.
rack, separate gate, separate fiber connection, separate everything. Power. Well, we're going to share power because we have
Right,
3 power sources.
great.
So under that, we get to 10 gigabit pipes to satisfy our need for the residents on the reservation
Fantastic.
and the network
Um,
that we're installing. So it's pretty exciting.
It's really exciting. You're making progress.
We're going to be
Um,
done by June.
Wow, that's really fast.
We have a plan.
Yeah.
Chris Albin's probably laughing his butt off right now. But
You know, it's nice to have a plan. It's nice to have a plan.
yes, we have a plan.
For
Just
everyone,
curious, what's the
go ahead,
last
Jeff.
mile piece of that going to look like, David? Are you building out PON, or are you directly to individual homes, or just curious?
We are doing XGS 10,
Okay.
well, 10 PON, and
Mhm.
if I can
Yeah, that's what we're
share.
doing too.
Yeah, I think here's part of it. Yeah, this one will work. Let's see, share button. I
think
cannot start screen share while, okay.
Try now.
We'll use this one and share. Okay, so this is what we're doing. So this is the reservation, and we have one guy way down here, and we've got 120 plus or minus connections that we're going to make. So the red lines are our trunk lines, and then we've got a detailed plan now to go to every residence on the reservation. And then the big deal is the bright green line here. That's where we're sharing with MMBI. So they're going to come down Highway 154, which is the Chumash Highway, and go into the roundabout over here at 246. I don't know if you guys all know the geography here, where
Mhm.
Santa Ynez, I should have mentioned that before. Here's the airport. And then they're going to end pretty much right at Via Moana Road, which is the entrance to the original reservation. In the meantime, our class 3 data center is in the casino building.
Mhm.
So they're going to go in and out through there and have their, whatever they would put in a hut would be in a rack. And then we have extra rack space if there's more commercial customers that want to come in.
That's great.
So we're going to serve all of this property on the north side of 246 is owned by the tribe, and some of it is sovereign land, the museum, for instance. And then, oh, this in red is our laydown yard. That's for Chris, for the
Mhm.
material that's going to come in. And then we're going to have drops along the way. We have a powwow that happens in the fall every year. It started as a couple hundred people 3 years ago. Now, this past fall, we had over 4,000 people show up for that. So we have to
Giant.
provide broadband. We're going to do it.
Mhm.
Right now, we're using our Band 41 link, the gift from the FCC. And then over here, this brown line is going to be our 10 gigabit connection. Right now, it's a 1 gigabit. And this is the new housing development that we are building now for descendants. And there's 143 connections over here. We're handling the critical infrastructure, excuse me, water, surveillance cameras, street lights, all that stuff is going to be on our network. And then plus a 1 gigabit fiber connection to the home. So it's all optical out here. We did end up putting in one active piece where the microwave comes in, and for Jeff, because we wanted to have a redundant connection between the fiber that comes on the bright green line and then the brown line, which is the microwave. That's going to remain. So if something happens with the fiber, the microwave, it fails over optically. So we'll just know. And then likewise, if something happens with the microwave, we'll be on the fiber over there. So call that double redundant, robust, reliable design from the guy who did public safety networks for a few years.
Great.
Did that answer your question, Shelby?
It did.
Too
And then
much?
your backhaul is all the state middle mile network.
Yeah, currently we have a Comcast connection that's 3 gigabit that we're going to upgrade to 5 or 10, depending on traffic. We're going to
Yeah.
start with 3 and see if we overload it as soon
Don't
as
use
everybody comes
Frontier.
online. Thank you for that excellent advice, I might
You
add.
probably already know that.
Yeah, they're all over our service area. I have another map for that.
They're absolutely horrible.
Yeah,
They,
They can't keep a circuit working to save their lives.
Well, and one thing I'll say about the area, we're pretty neutral in terms of providers, but Frontier does have most of the RDOF auction areas for our region. So I know there's a lot of activity coming into, this. I live near this area where David's map is, so I'm really familiar with the the foot traffic in terms of provider space. So I will say that in that area, sort of across the highway from the reservation, is a single provider landscape for the most part, and a community sentiment that could be ripe for competition. So just state it like that.
yes, we've been we have multiple contacts at CPUC, and the original grant team that we worked with has some level of confidence in us, even though we haven't delivered anything yet.
Mhm.
But they've been gently nudging us to see if we'd be interested in expanding the network to this Santa Ynez, Los Olivos, Ballard area.
Mhm.
And right now it's too big a chunk for the tribe to take on because they're not familiar with this business or this business model. So what we're trying to do is get our feet under us, get an operating network, and then in a year or so, we're told there'll be more grant money available. And who knows, maybe we'll partner with what Frontier is today. We don't know what they're going to be tomorrow in the Valley because of the bankruptcy buyout. And then there's a bunch of other questions about
Right.
what does the tribe own? If you really want to go down a rabbit hole for 30 seconds, they don't have an easement through the BIA for the stuff that they've put on sovereign land. So we own it.
Wow.
And then we also paid for connections from Solvang, where they have their, I'll call it a central office, fiber. We brought in aerial fiber to the casino in order to have enough bandwidth to operate the casino. We also have, I'll move the map carefully. I just blink for a second. We also have an office building over here right at 101 and 246. We paid for a fiber to connect that. And then we have 2 hotels in Solvang that we're using Comcast to connect under an EDI. So back to Frontier, Verizon's trying to just absorb the whole thing. And what we're saying is, well, not so fast. We already paid for this stuff. Are you going to make us pay for it again? And then anything on sovereign land, there's an issue. You don't have an easement. So what do you want to do? So all of that is churning around out there.
Yeah, and my understanding is that whole purchase and acquisition is still being evaluated at the state level, so.
Yeah, we
see what ends up
attended
happening.
a meeting, I think it was 2 weeks ago, with the 2 of the commissioners' offices and laid out our position. There were a bunch of us that the couple of, well, we were the only tribe, but there were other interested parties that laid it out to commissioners and said, hey, you can't just let this go wholesale to Verizon and then they'll come in. I mean, there's a couple of things like, do we get reimbursed for what we paid for? You know, the millions of dollars to bring the fiber in. And I'm sure we're not the only customer on that fiber anymore. So, you know, if you want to be fair and equitable. Anyway, so that's that rabbit hole. Any questions?
Thanks for sharing, yeah. Or Jeff, do you want to share any updates around your experience with your projects, FFA projects up in San Luis Obispo County?
Yeah, it's going fine. You know, we're
Great.
for Task and El Paso Robles, where we've had easy contact with the CPC. We've got our team working on it. We'll get started soon on things. We're starting our reporting. So everything's on track for that. It's going very smoothly.
Great. Great.
Yes.
We're happy to hear that. All right. Nadine, will you pop up our slides one more time? There we go.
I have a quick question for David.
Sure.
Were you involved with the tribe at all when Frontier acquired these territory from Verizon several years ago?
No, I was not here. But there were several other people that have been with the tribe for that, well over 20 years. So
I
we
just
do
wonder
have
if any of
some
those
history.
same concerns were raised during the commission's hearings on that at that time.
Probably not. Because we weren't very savvy about the telecom stuff. You know, just being a customer was about as far as it went. But now that we're providing a service, it's a little bit different picture for us.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not going to call out Nicole from Santa Paula right now, but I will just mention, unless you have something you'd like to share, but I will mention that an FFA award was made not to the city of Santa Paula, but to Frontier in Ventura County that connects just outside of Santa Paula up to Ojai, just outside of Ojai, I believe. So Nicole, if you'd like to share anything, you're welcome to. But we will continue moving through these sort of meeting updates, if not. you can attend these meetings, these CBC, the Broadband Council meetings, and the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative meetings. They happen on a quarterly basis. They generally happen the same week, sometimes a week apart from each other. The biggest highlight really here is the Middle Mile Broadband Initiative. They have about 3,000 miles in installation. In our area, what we heard is that CVIN, which has the contract for some legs in both Santa Barbara County and I believe in Ventura County, Malika, correct me if I'm wrong. They have about 90% of their design and engineering complete, and 15 of their segments have a fiber pole in progress. We know that that's not where they're at in Santa Barbara County. Our understanding is that they're pretty far off for completing segments in our area. Lumen is another MMBI provider in our region. They've got 20 segments across the state, 18 have their engineering finalized, and 1 segment of fiber poles is complete, 11 in construction. We're expecting our region to be completed, I think, later this year, is my understanding that they were looking towards December or Q4. We were able to meet with American Dark Fiber, who has a small section in Ventura County. They've got about 95% of their design and engineering completed statewide, and are in conversations with partners in Ventura County about what's possible, what are the needs, what's possible in that part of the region. I will also share this last paragraph here. CalDEP is the new branding for the statewide digital equity plan, formerly called SDEP. We're tracking this funding source for digital inclusion work, digital equity plans, and implementation grants. We are hearing that the request for applications will be released at the end of Q1 this year. There is a meeting next Wednesday that we'll attend in order to get the stakeholder update there. The BCPC is seeking to lead a regional application effort. So combining our 3 counties into 1 application area so that we can develop digital equity plans for each county and then sort of feed up into an overarching thematic alignment for the region, given that we have so much cross-county commuting between workspaces and living spaces. So those are quick updates about those meetings coming up. Nadine, can we do the next slide, please? We are still waiting to hear from CPUC about the infrastructure grant application cycle. This is a CASIF grant. They did allocate funding in this year for CASIF IGA grants. My understanding from the last conversation we had with our CPUC consortium liaison is that they're still finalizing locations, and I suspect, she didn't say it, but they are aligning with other funding sources to make sure they're not duplicating efforts. So when the eligible locations are updated, we'll have a much more refined list of priority areas that can be funded through CASIF funding. FFA did put out their dashboard through Tableau, which totals how much money is going where. We calculated the remaining allocations. We are still unclear, and maybe some of you have more information than we do. We are still unclear if there will be a round 2 of FFA applications. When we met with the broadband caseworkers, all they said is that they have stated that there will be another round. There's no specifics about the timeline or the process that we have been made aware of. And in fact, I'm going to just say it, even though we're recording, we were kind of met with a brick wall of broadband caseworkers who were not trying to provide us information about FFA. David, you might have some information.
Yeah, and this was very iffy but they said they're expecting a round 2 FFA after BEAD closes. So we'll be looking about 2 years out. So that would be late 26 or 27.
Oh, interesting. They're not talking about the BEAD application period, which closes in April of this
We're
year.
talking about when the funding's released for BEAD.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I know that part of that money is federal and that's all under scrutiny at this point. So that's why I said, this is our plan. We don't know for sure,
Okay.
but we're trying to get through BEAD first because that money's allocated and there's a belief that it can't be clawed back
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
was an act of Congress. So
Yes. And I think that's what's working through what they're attempting to work through the court system at this point is what is eligible for executive discretion to change and what
yeah,
should
it's kind
remain
of
in
weird,
place.
and we can all
It's
admit
totally
that even on
weird.
a recording.
Yeah.
I've never seen something like this before, but that's okay. So
Yeah.
one
You're hearing years out that the FFA
yeah,
funding is years out.
which is okay because there's going to be a lot of construction and a lot of stuff that's got to get done for the original round of FFA in less than 2 years now. And then BEAD's going to hit, and then another round of FFA. So I'm thinking that not so much the material, but the actual people to be able to put stuff in the ground, connect things, and make it all
Mhm.
fire up and work. There'll be a bit of a squeeze on those guys.
Yeah, the
That,
workforce.
yeah, there aren't enough to do it today. So when you throw
Mhm.
BEAD on top of that and then another FFA round, it's going to get tricky.
Yeah. I'm going to flag that for Alma, who's on the call from Santa Barbara County Workforce Development Board. This
Yeah,
is
get people trained in fiber,
yep.
please.
Additionally, a workforce issue. And we've had a couple of good conversations on these meetings in the last 2 years around workforce needs and ability. So that's interesting information to hear. Basically, we're all kind of like a TBD situation with FFA and IGA. BEAD has posted their locations. The final BEAD challenge map has been approved. But before we go through that, I'm going to steal your screen share, Nadine, and share the timeline for BEAD. We, as the Broadband Consortium, are not funded to support BEAD applications. We have been instructed to refer anyone who's interested in BEAD funding to meet with, to follow the BEAD office hours. So if that is something that's on your radar or in your work plans for supplementing your networks or your plans, we strongly encourage you right now to sign up for the BEAD office hours so that you can get on their schedule to have any of your questions answered. There have been a series of webinars that you might have been attending. They are available. They are posted online. They have been recorded. So the information is out there, and we ask that you direct your questions to the BEAD office hours and the BEAD grant team. What I just want to highlight is that the sub-grantee pre-qualification period starts at the end of March. So they've divided the application into several different phases. The first one is making sure you're even an eligible entity for applying, that you can demonstrate your qualifications, your eligibility as an organization, but also your financial capacity to meet the match requirements, I believe. And then once you are have gone through that pre-qualification period, you'll be eligible to submit a grant application based on proposals using the challenge map, which I'm going to move us over to the challenge map just to kind of take a look at it. Oh. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. And we don't have to spend too much time on this if you've all already taken a good solid look at it. But this is our region here. What you can see that they've done with this map, which I actually like. If we take off the locations that are considered served, you have your unserved and your underserved, but you also have these green dots that are already funded. They are not seeking to double fund those locations. So you're really looking at the pink dots initially and the blue dots secondary. My understanding, and maybe some of you have different insights, is that the state of California has to fund all the pink dots before they can fund the blue dots, before they can fund the community anchor institutions. One thing that's a little bit tricky about this map, and I had this conversation just yesterday, I think one of our local providers was questioning some of these pink dots where they're like, but we serve some of these pink dots are community anchor institutions actually. And so if they're on this map, I think it means that they do not have a 1 gig plan serving them. This is specifically where I was looking yesterday. So if you click on the pink dots, community anchor institution designation, keep in mind that if that's considered unserved, it means that they're not finding a provider who provides a 1 gig speed level. Any thoughts, questions, critiques? Shelby, you're totally off the market here.
Shelby, I'll just say 2 things about the map.
Sure.
One is people should keep in mind if you're going to go to this map directly, that the way that it's set up, since there is a great density of data here, is that when you're zoomed out, you're not getting every single dot presented. And as you zoom in, it like they try to throw enough dots to kind of indicate proportional densities, but you're not seeing every dot until you zoom all the way in pretty close. So like at this layer at where Shelby presently is on the map, you're probably not seeing every dot, and you got to zoom in pretty tight to literally see everything. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is regarding the anchor institutions, that the state is pretty liberal in what they designate as an anchor institution. And so there's hundreds, many hundreds in our area. So when you're looking at things being designated as such, be aware that it's a rather low bar to make it onto the anchor institution list.
Thank you, Tim.
Yep.
I am going to go back into our slides. We can reopen that map when we're moving into our priority areas discussion. But before, did we have any other comments or questions for Tim or for any of us about the mapping here? Okay, great. I think I'll relinquish this back to Nadine to put the regional update slide back up. We did get some great updates from our FFA awardees on the call. Did anyone else have a regional update that they wanted to share? Anything in your service area? Any comments, questions? Okay, let's go to the next slide. Malika, are you available on the call? Because Malika does have a specific update for us on the Ventura County Regional Broadband Initiative.
Yeah, I'm here. My internet is unstable. So forgive me if I'm buffering on your screen. I won't go through the middle mile network update since Shelby already mentioned that. I will say that in our conversation with American Dark Fiber, their segment is going from basically the city of Moore Park into the city of Fillmore. along the highway there or adjacent to, and they have mentioned that their communications with the cities, because they're touching upon the cities, has been great and everything is ready to go. There is a holdup with Caltrans in permitting a specific segment there because it is geographically a challenging segment. And so that is a barrier that we continue to hear frequently in some of these MMBI stakeholder meetings is the Caltrans permitting approval process is a little stagnant right now, or it's taking a little bit longer. I'm hoping that doesn't continue to persist as time goes on. And then Shelby already mentioned the FFA project that was awarded to Frontier. The primary update we wanted to share with you all is that we are hosting a briefing on the Ventura Council of Governments Regional Broadband Initiative, which is the result of the council's LADA project. The briefing is going to go over key findings in the county, so a current broadband landscape, additionally, an overview of broadband opportunity zones that have been identified in the county, and an introduction to an emerging network 2030 that we have we're assessing for the county, for Ventura County, as a whole. And then also soliciting feedback and input into the recommendations that folks will have or needs that folks have in wanting to continue to support VCOG in convening and collaborating regional partners for broadband deployment and adoption initiatives. So the briefing is going to be next Thursday, 2:30 to 4. It is in person in Camarillo, City of. There will be a Zoom option to follow, and if you're interested, please reach out and I can forward you the invite, and I'll make sure you get the the Zoom link if you're needing to come in from afar. But we welcome you and your input, and hope to see you there.
Thanks, Mo. So we'll use this last half hour for sort of our roundtable discussion about priority areas. We have a spreadsheet. We have some static map images to present to you. But first I wanted to just contextualize this presentation through our sort of our lens and our process of how we came to these priority areas. Also, to just be very upfront, this is part of our work plan as the Broadband Consortium, is to identify priority areas, share them out with municipalities, share them out with internet providers, and validate those priority areas as needing to be served or otherwise as being served. And then identifying ways to develop projects for providers or municipalities or CBOs to find ways to serve those areas. So the lens we're using is who is unserved and how do we get them to be served? When we say unserved, we are using the CPUC definition of 25 download, 3 upload, but we are really looking at bringing everyone to the 100 symmetrical at this time. Of course, we know that the more the better, but we think 100 symmetrical is a good benchmark at this point, considering the funding sources and the capacity for deployment at this point. We are also using a lens of developing regional interconnections and strengthening resiliency as a region. So making sure we have redundancy, right? Having redundant connections, making sure that our community anchor institutions are connected, ensuring that our municipalities are working together and across jurisdictions to serve businesses and residents alike. And then we're also looking at competitive market capacity. Some of the priority areas that we have listed on our spreadsheet are actually what are being They're not officially opportunity zones in the EDA sense, but we've worked with Teleworks, who has sort of captured that language of opportunity zones to indicate that there is some capacity in that market for an additional provider that would improve affordability for residents. Tim did a fantastic analysis for us up to date on the Tri-County municipal best technology available percentages, and which, many of our areas are served by a single provider, or a single fiber provider and a cable provider. We're really looking at what is the capacity to get folks served and served affordably. The process, we're using CPUC inputs, FCC inputs, and then regional study data. So if there's a regional broadband plan or strategy for an area, we're also incorporating that information as we're vetting these areas. We're looking at different technologies. One of the major points of conversation, and I'm interested to hear what the folks on this call have to say, are, what technologies can sufficiently serve the whole service area with 100 symmetrical speeds, right? I know that we are not advocating for copper to be the primary technology. We understand that cable has increasing capacity, and that fiber is our sort of what we're promoting as the best choice, the best option for future forward service. So we are advocating fiber, with the understanding that there are areas that cannot be served by fiber based on market conditions right now. So we also are looking at fixed wireless access points, particularly for our rural communities. And increasingly, we've been asked to keep satellite in the discussion, not by CPC, but by folks who are attending our calls and who we're engaging with, because satellite is a viable option for some areas of our region. So always happy to hear what the experts have to say about the different technologies and what areas are ripe for different types of service. Tim has put all this information into our regional collaboration portal. We are not going to showcase that today. We do have some static images from it, but we would like to invite anyone who's interested to reach out and set up a one-on-one meeting with your county liaison. That'd be Malika for Ventura County, Michael for San Luis Obispo County, or myself for Santa Barbara County. And we will work with Tim and you and set up a time to look through the collaboration portal for a deeper dive into this data. Finally, we have a survey that we would love for you to respond to. Nadine will put the link in the chat. This survey has some conditional questions at the beginning. Are you part of a municipal project or a private provider? And provide us some insight into your priorities based on that information. This is one of the ways we're validating information, is by conducting these surveys. So I am going to open the floor and sort of share our priority area list. So when you take the survey, you can see what we've put in there. We have a tab for each San Luis Obispo County, Santa Barbara County, and Ventura County. We have listed out the information we have about priority areas and current projects. So they each have analysis from Teleworks in terms of market opportunity zones. They each have applications that have been submitted for funding and whether they've been awarded or not. We will be putting in more parameters as we can identify them for where those projects are. But what we do have is we have still shots from the maps here, with the funding source also indicated. So San Luis Obispo County, we've separated out these are the opportunity zones. They're actually fixed wireless access and fiber.
Yeah, and Shelby, on that map that you're making an edit on, the green are the opportunity zones and the blue are the FWA. You want to make that note. And also while I'm talking, while Shelby's editing, all this data we do have in a GIS system, so it's all interactive, and besides just polygons that we can throw on the map, we have all the data that's attached to the polygons, of course. And every one of these rows that you're seeing in the spreadsheet, with the exception of just a small handful, are related back to one of the polygons in one of these maps. So we can tie the project directly to the geographic area.
Thank you, Tim. And we know that there are market conditions that private providers and municipalities are going to be looking at. So we are able to overlay all of these to then reveal what are the unserved, unspoken for locations if you're looking for a completely new market area that hasn't been spoken for, so to speak. So
What
this
is-
is our San Luis Obispo. Go ahead.
Remind me what FWA is?
Fixed wireless access.
Okay, all right. And then,
Yeah.
so the green opportunity zones, what does that mean?
So when the analysis was done, and I'm actually going to scroll up here sometimes. So when the analysis was done, Teleworks looked at addressable market locations. So how many potential customers do you have? And what percentage of those locations are unserved or underserved, according to the FCC and according to CPUC. And so then, and the percentage that's already has fiber spoken for. Now, Tim, I believe, is working on associating each of these line items with a designated number, so you can kind of identify where the project area would be. And we have the files if you wanted to do a deep dive. But for example, let's look at the Santa Margarita line item here. There are the location density is per square mile. That doesn't mean that there's that many locations altogether, because it's a smaller area than that square mile. So really they're looking at 504 addressable market locations. According to the FCC, all of them are served, but according to CPUC's data, about 2% of them are not. So when you're considering, this particular zone, you're looking at, 2% that are completely unserved, but you're looking at, if you're a fiber provider, you're looking at only 26% of those locations are served by fiber. And if you wanted to look at that market area, you might notice that there's, this is saying that there's 74% that are not served by fiber.
That's fascinating that it blows my mind that 26% of the residents in Santa Margarita would be served by fiber. I can't imagine that that's true.
Is it area or is it residents? Do you know, Tim, off the top of your head?
I think it's area, not people.
Okay, I misspoke then.
Interesting. Maybe there's some fiber in some commercial buildings or something, but I've never seen any fiber to residences in Santa Margarita.
Just jumping in here, I know that the Santa Margarita Ranch has fiber and probably area-wise covers quite a bit. So
that's probably it, Michael.
That's
Thank
my
you.
guess.
No, that makes sense.
Thank
And
you.
some of the new developments, I'm sure, are served by fiber, right? So that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that clarifying question. So we've included this information because we think it's a reliable data source. We are interested in talking about these locations with anyone that's interested. you know, we're still looking at what's eligible. We won't know until the IGA grants are announced, what's eligible, but we can look at this in, encourage you to talk to broadband caseworkers about BEAD. We're hoping that they give us a little more leeway in working with you on BEAD grants. In the Santa Barbara analysis, because Teleworks funding source was a different funding source than San Luis Obispo County, they were also able to calculate the last mile revenue by, I think it's year 5. It doesn't say that in here, but so this was funded by an EDA grant that the Econ Alliance and the Santa Ynez Band of Shumash partnered on. And so there's additional data there that has been, you know, numbers crunched anyways, that add to the recommendations for this.
So this
for these
is
opportunity zones analysis.
so this is on the consortium website.
This is linked in our survey that we've sent out. We sent it out through our newsletter contacts list, and we'll be sending it out after this meeting. This is what we were asking you to comment on, is which of these
Okay.
are like,
All right.
what do you say, like, yes, this is a priority area, we agree with you, or no, this is already served, you can, you know, or we already have funding, we already received funding for this. And, you know, we aren't trying to blow up anybody's proprietary plans, right? So as ISPs, if you are able to share with us what you're working on and can show us that, you know, it's in progress, we want to support that project. We don't necessarily want to tell someone else that they should be working on it. And so if we can get that line of communication open and establish that sort of proprietary bubble of information with our liaisons, then we can better refine this list and determine what we still need to really strongly advocate for.
I think the interesting part of this, I know for us, would be if we were looking at any of these areas, is there funding available that we're not yet aware of?
Right.
That would help us with this. That would be, and then how long would you have to wait, and how much foolishness would you have to go through to get yourself in line for that?
Yeah.
And is that worth it? You know.
And I think another piece of that, besides you know, public funding sources, if there is enough activity at the municipal level where they agree, yes, this is a priority area for us serving our constituents, is there any leverage that they want to work with an ISP provider in a public-private partnership to make it happen before a funding source becomes available for it? So I think that's another leg that we're interested in supporting and exploring based on ISP interest, municipal capacity is the word I'll use, is supporting those types of relationships. I know Astound has been excellent in terms of creating and supporting those relationships as well. So I'll just briefly share the Ventura County view as well. Oh, we should cut this a little bit, so it's just Ventura County and not LA. We're not charged with these locations.
Hey, Shelby, I want to jump in here with an idea, and I'm directing this to Jeff as well. Okay. Now, since you're going to be sending this out, Shelby, what I could do pretty quick, if you wanted to maybe add one more row that's just like a really easy identifier, then I could put labels on the maps so that every one of these rows could very easily be related to the specific map polygon. So I could do that. And so question for Jeff, I mean, would that make it better for you, Jeff?
Probably, yeah. I mean, there's so many different types of grants, and it's hard to keep track of all of that.
Yeah.
And we're evaluating areas that we may want to look at. And we've have the one FFA grant. We're partnered with City of Slow on their grant. We're involved so that we're looking at BEAD. But if there's other grant sources out there beyond that, it would be valuable for us to know that.
Yeah.
And it could help us in our decision making.
Yeah. And I want to reiterate that in this moment, there's a pretty big freeze on any sort of commitment to
Right.
additional funding sources, but we are tracking that, and we do have the leeway to share that information out. So yes, is what I'm saying, is that as it becomes available, we'd like to share that information as well. We have this column here that we're hoping to continue populating, is what which areas are eligible for which source of funding, as we become aware of that or as we research it. This is a really initial spreadsheet that we put together of all the information we have.
Okay, and then while I'm doing that, Shelby, I'll trim these maps so that it's not showing a lot of out of county stuff like you were just noticing.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Any other comments? I really appreciate your insights, Jeff, and if there's anyone else on the call that has any other points to share. All right. Well, we've got, 13 minutes left on the call. If anyone wants to stick around and share anything off the recording, I am going to